was standing inside that quiet bank lobby when my own son pushed a stack of papers toward me, smiling like it was nothing. He told me to just sign, the way you'd talk to someone who couldn't think for himself. But I saw what he was really after, and before he knew it, I slipped a small note to the bank manager, and everything changed. Makes you wonder what some folks are willing to do when they think no one's watching. The kettle had just started to whistle when I heard the front door bang harder than it needed to. My son never used to slam doors. I stood at the stove, one hand on the handle of the old cast iron pan, watching the eggs set around the edges. The house was quiet, except for that kettle and the faint rumble of traffic from the street. It was the kind of quiet I'd learned to live with after my wife passed. Thin, but steady. Then his voice cut through it. "Dad, what is this?" He came into the kitchen waving a white envelope like it was a summons. I didn't have to squint to know it was another bill. "Good morning to you too," I said. "Don't start with that," he snapped. "The electric, Dad. You let it sit again." He dropped the envelope on the table so hard it slid and bumped into my coffee mug. I turned off the stove and moved the pan aside. Old habit from the plant. Deal with the heat before anything else. "It's not due till the 15th, I told him. "Today's only the 9th. He rolled his eyes, already heading for the drawer by the fridge. That drawer had been my drawer for 30 years. Receipts, spare keys, warranty cards, little pieces of paper with phone numbers I didn't call anymore. He yanked it open with one hand and started digging through it like he owned the place. "You can't keep waiting," he muttered, shuffling envelopes. "One of these days the lights are going to go out, and you're going to be sitting here in the dark, talking about, 'I forgot.'" "I didn't forget," I said. "I spaced them out. I've been paying bills longer than you've been breathing." He snorted. "Yeah, and you've been slipping more lately too." The way he said "slipping" pinched something behind my ribs. I dried my hands on a towel and watched him pull paperwork out and stack it in messy piles. He wasn't looking for the electric bill anymore. He was hunting. "What are you looking for?" "Everything," he said. "The mortgage, the insurance, your bank stuff. I need to see what's going on before something blows up." "Nothing's going to blow up," I answered. "This isn't the plant. At the steel mill, if something went wrong, metal twisted, alarms blared, fire spat out where it shouldn't. You could see danger. You could smell it. In this kitchen, it just walked in and called me Dad in a tone I'd never heard from him when he was small. He found the folder I kept under the phone book and pulled it free, flipping it open right there on the counter. "You shouldn't keep this junk lying around," he said. "Anybody could walk in and take it." "Anybody doesn't have a key," I said. "Exactly." He dropped the folder and reached into his pocket. I watched him a second before I realized what he was doing. He held out his hand. "Give me your keys." "For what?" "So I can keep them," he said, talking slow like he was explaining a game to a child. "You're always misplacing them."
"You locked yourself out twice last month, remember?"
"I locked myself out once," I replied. I was distracted. He didn't let it go, just stood there, palm open. "Come on, Dad, you know I'm right. Let me handle it. That's what kids do when parents get older." I thought about all the times I'd driven him to practice, to school, to friends' houses that didn't have fathers living in them. Thought about how many times I'd waited in the parking lot while he finished whatever game he thought was more important than coming home for dinner. He used to look at me like I could fix anything. Now his eyes saw a problem. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my keyring.
the house key, the mailbox key, the old brass one that used to open my locker at the plant. He pinched the house key free before I could change my mind. "I'll hang on to this," he said. "Safer that way." "I can still open my own door." "Yeah, but you don't have to," he answered lightly. "That's the point."
He walked past me, moving toward the small bowl by the sink where I kept my wallet. He picked it up and flipped it open like a cop. "What are you doing now?" "Checking you're not carrying half your life around," he said. "You drop this thing one time at Kroger and some kid drains your account." "I know what I carry," I said. "Close it." He slid out my debit card between two fingers. "I'll hold this one too," he said. "I'll set up some automatic stuff, make sure things get paid on time." His tone wasn't angry anymore. That almost made it worse. He sounded casual, efficient, like this was a chore he'd been forced into. "Put that back," I told him. "Dad, put it back." He looked up at me then, really looked, and something shifted in his face. Not enough to be called shame, just a flicker of annoyance that I wasn't rolling over fast enough. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," he said. "I'm trying to help you." "Help," I said slowly, "isn't something you take.
It's something you offer.
My voice stayed level, but my hands had curled around the edge of the counter. When I was foreman, guys knew when my jaw clenched like that, someone had pushed too close to the line. Here, my own boy either didn't see it or chose not to. He slipped the card into his pocket. "We'll talk about it later," he said. "I've got to get to work." "Don't worry, I'll straighten some of this out." He scooped up the folder with my papers, tucked it under his arm, and started toward the hallway. No, may I? No, is that okay? Just taking. "Leave the folder," I said. He paused, one foot already out of the kitchen. "I'll bring it back, Dad. Relax. You don't even know what's in here half the time." "I know enough to know it's mine." He gave a short laugh. "That's the problem. You still think everything is just yours." The eggs in the pan were cooling to rubber. The coffee had gone lukewarm. The house that had once held birthday banners and the smell of my wife's Sunday roast now held my son's silhouette in the doorway, framed by attitude I didn't recognize. He shook his head once, like he was tired of explaining himself, and left with my folder, my card, and my key. I turned the stove back on, even though breakfast was ruined. The act of doing something simple steadied my hands. I cracked another egg, listened to it hiss. In the plant, when a bolt was stripped or a gear was misaligned, he didn't always stop the line right away. Sometimes you watched, took note, saw how bad it really was before you shut everything down. You measured twice, then you cut. I slid the overcooked eggs into the trash and started fresh. The drawer by the fridge stood open, skeleton of a system I'd built over decades, empty spaces where my papers had been. I closed it gently and wiped the counter, as if tidying could cover the hollow spot spreading in my chest. His car engine started outside. The sound faded down the street while I stood alone in my kitchen, spatula in hand, thinking about how easy it had been for him to reach in and take pieces of my life, one small item at a time. I put my plate on the table and sat down, though I wasn't hungry anymore. My coffee had gone cold, but I lifted the mug anyway and held it there, just to have something in my hand I knew was still mine. By mid-morning I was out on the front porch, pretending to sweep leaves that the wind would just blow back again. I needed something to do with my hands that didn't involve thinking about missing keys and an empty drawer. Mrs. Hernandez from across the street spotted me. She'd lived there almost as long as I had, raised kids of her own, buried a husband before I buried my wife. Normally we traded small talk about the weather, the Bengals, the price of groceries. This time she walked straight across the road like she had a purpose. "Hey, Mr. Carter." "Morning," I said, resting on the broom. She patted my arm, eyes soft in that way people get when they've already decided you're fragile. "I ran into your boy at Kroger yesterday," she said. "He told me he's real worried about you. Said you've been forgetting to lock your door and leaving stuff on the stove." She shook her head, clucking her tongue. "You know, if you ever need anything, you just holler. We're right here." I watched her talk, but my ears were stuck on the phrase, "real worried about you." My son had said those words to someone who believed every syllable. "Did he now?" I answered. "He's a good son," she went on. "Not every man sticks around to look after his daddy like that. My oldest? If I blink, she's gone." I nodded politely. "Yeah, he's involved." "That's what you need at our age," she said. "Somebody to take charge before things get out of hand." That broom handle pressed into my palm. I could almost hear my father's voice from way back. "Be careful who you let narrate your life. Folks love to hold the microphone." "I appreciate you checking on me," I told her. "Of course," she said. "And if you start feeling off, maybe you let him handle more. No shame in that." She squeezed my arm and headed back across the street, satisfied she'd done her good deed for the day. I watched her walk away, then looked down at the broom. Hadn't swept a damn thing. So my son wasn't just taking folders now. He was taking the story too. I leaned the broom against the railing and went back inside. The house felt tighter, as if the walls had leaned in a fraction. I picked up the phone to call him, then set it down again, picked it up, put it back. If I challenged him, he'd say I was overreacting. If I stayed quiet, this new version of me, the helpless old man who couldn't be trusted with a stove or a deadbolt, would keep spreading. My mind ran in circles. Leaving it alone would be easier. That's what I'd done when he came home late as a teenager, or when he talked slick to teachers and I smoothed it over. Peace had its price, and for years I'd paid it without counting. Now it felt like the bill had come due. The phone rang before I made up my mind. Old landline, still hanging on the kitchen wall. "Yeah? You sound half dead already," a familiar voice said. "That you, or some ghost they got answering your phone now?" I couldn't help a small smile. "Morning, Reggie." Reggie and I had worked the same line at the plant for 25 years. He'd retired a couple of years before me when his knees finally gave out. We didn't talk every day, but every time we did, it felt like picking up a tool you knew by weight. "Heard you been busy," he said. "From who?" "Ran into your boy at the gas station," he replied. "He was filling up, talking about restructuring your life or some mess like that. Asked me if I thought you'd accept help from him." I walked to the sink as we talked, turned on the faucet just to hear something steady. "What did you tell him?" "I told him you're stubborn as hell," Reggie said. And then I told him something he probably didn't want to hear. "What's that?" "When a man starts talking for another man who's still breathing just fine, he's not helping. He's auditioning for ownership." Water ran over the edge of a mug in my hand. I shut it off and set the mug down. "You always were dramatic," I muttered. "Call it what you want," he said. "We've both been supervisors. We know what it looks like when somebody starts answering for you in meetings. They're coming for your chair. Same game, different table." I thought about Mrs. Hernandez, about her telling me my son was taking charge. Thought about that envelope on my kitchen table and the folder under his arm. Maybe he's just worried, I said, though the words tasted thin. Maybe, Reggie replied, or maybe he's scared of his own bills and sees your name on some paperwork and gets ideas. I'm not saying he's a villain. I'm saying watch who's holding the pen. We both stayed quiet for a beat. Years in a noisy factory had taught us how to use silence, too. You sound tired, he added. It's been a long couple days. You eating? Trying. Good. And listen, man, if you want someone to ride with you to wherever, bank, lawyer, whatever, you call me. 2 sets of eyes see more than one. I rubbed the bridge of my nose. I'm not going to war, I said. Didn't say you were, Reggie answered. But if someone else is drawing battle lines, you best know where they are. That's all. We talked another minute about the old place. Rumour was they were automating the last line we'd worked on. Then he had to go. Granddaughter's recital or some happy thing like that. I hung up and stood there with the receiver still in my hand.
It struck me then how many people had opinions about what my life should look like,
and how few had actually asked me. I grabbed my jacket and stepped back outside. The air carried that damp Ohio chill that seeps into your bones if you stand still too long. A kid zipped by on a bike, backpack bouncing. A delivery truck idled at the corner. Ordinary life went on, while my own felt like it was being rewritten without my consent. At the mailbox, I flipped through the stack. Flyers, a church bulletin, a notice from the clinic reminding me about my checkup, and one envelope from the bank with my name stamped in neat black letters. I slit it open right there on the curb. Just a standard statement, but the numbers meant something different now. Every digit looked vulnerable. On the walk back up the path, I caught sight of my reflection in the front window. Same face, more lines. Same shoulders that had lifted engines and steel beams. The only thing that seemed to have changed was the way people talked around me instead of to me. Inside, I spread the mail on the table. The church bulletin had a note from Pastor Green about the upcoming seniors' luncheon. I usually enjoyed those. Free food, familiar faces, stories that started with, "Remember when?" This time, my chest tightened when I saw a little handwritten message at the bottom. Marcus, your son says you've been under the weather. We're praying for you. If you need us to talk with him about next steps, we're here. PG. I sat down slowly. Under the weather. Next steps. Words that sounded kind, but carried an undercurrent. My son had been busy planting seeds at the grocery store, with neighbours, at the gas station, in the church. The room felt smaller again, like the walls had taken another step inward. I pulled the notepad from the centre of the table, the one I usually used for grocery lists and football scores, and clicked my pen. Instead of scribbling down milk or bread, I wrote, "Who is speaking for me?" then underlined it. Beneath that, I started a list. Mrs. Hernandez, Pastor, Reggie. Next to Reggie's name, I added, "Actually asked." The others had only relayed what my son had said. My hand hovered over the page before I added his name too. Darren, telling everyone he's taking care of me. The letters looked foreign in my own handwriting. I wasn't used to examining my family like this, like a situation report. But at the plant, that's how we prevented accidents. You logged near misses, slowed down when patterns started to show up. I circled his name and tapped the pen on the table. Letting this slide would keep the peace, at least on the surface. He'd walk in, toss out phrases like, just trying to help, and I'd swallow my irritation, like I had for years. We'd sit at the same table, him with more of my keys, more of my cards, more of my story. Speaking up might push him away for good. The thought scared me more than I wanted to admit. He was my only child. The idea of him storming out of my life and not coming back. I'd seen that happen to men in my neighborhood. Fathers standing in driveways watching taillights disappear. Pride and grief mixed so tight you couldn't separate them. My fingers tightened around the pen until they ached. Who benefits from your silence? I wrote under his name. I stared at the question. In my marriage, my quiet had stopped arguments from turning into slammed doors. As a supervisor, my calm voice had kept hot-headed workers from throwing wrenches or walking off the job. Silence had been a tool, a strong one. Now it felt like a hand over my own mouth. I pushed the chair back and went to the fridge, opened it, then shut it again without taking anything. Hunger wasn't the problem. I grabbed my phone instead. Reggie's number sat near the top of my recent calls. Below it, my son's. I hovered over Darren's name, thumb ready to press, then moved up and dialed the bank instead. When the automated voice answered, I pressed through the options, listening to the beeps. When I finally reached a live person, I cleared my throat. "Yeah, my name is Marcus Carter," I said. "I'd like to come in and review my accounts in person. Alone." The woman at the bank gave me an appointment for Friday morning. That left a couple of days to stew in my own thoughts. On Thursday, I drove over to the strip mall on Reading Road to get my hair trimmed. Old habits die slow. My wife used to tease me that I go broke keeping my hair union short, even after retirement. The barbershop sat 2 doors down from a little real estate office that had been there as long as I could remember. I pushed open the barbershop door and the bell jingled. 2 guys were ahead of me, so I took a seat by the window. From there, I could see into the brokerage through their glass front. Posters of smiling families holding keys, sold signs, all that. While I waited, the real estate door opened and out stepped Carla Jackson. We'd gone to school together, back before knees and back started making noise. She handled a lot of listings in our neighborhood. She spotted me through the glass and grinned, then veered toward the barbershop instead of her car. "Marcus, Lord, I haven't seen you in a minute," she said as she came in. "Been hiding," I replied, standing to give her a quick hug. "You look good," she said. "Retired suits you." "Some days." She laughed, then tilted her head like she'd remembered something. "Hey, I think I saw your name come across my desk," she said. "Got me wondering what you were up to." My stomach gave a small twist. "My name?" "Yeah," she frowned slightly, thinking back. "I was in the office yesterday. One of the younger agents was fiddling with a coming soon file. I saw Carter on the screen and asked, 'That Marcus from over on Elm?' He said, 'Nah, just preliminary, family situation.' She said it like gossip, not like a warning. Her face was open, curious. I must have gone a shade paler because she touched my arm. "You okay?" "What did he mean, family situation?" I asked. "I don't know," she said. I didn't pry. Folks get touchy about their business. But if you're selling,
You call me, not those babies in there. I know what your place is worth. She smiled again, oblivious to the way my mind had started to race. Might have been another Carter, I said lightly. It's a common name. Maybe, she agreed. Anyway, good to see you. Tell that boy of yours I said hi. She headed back out. The bell rang again as the barber called the next customer. I sat down slowly. Coming soon. Family situation. My name in a file I hadn't created. I stared at the sports channel on the small TV for a full 5 minutes without hearing a word.
When my turn came, I climbed into the chair and let the clippers buzz around my ears, nodding at small talk about the game, the weather, politics. My mind was somewhere else entirely, walking through my own front door and seeing a for sale sign nailed to the yard without my say-so. Driving home, I noticed every real estate sign on every corner. Darren's car was already in the driveway when I pulled up. That was unusual. He usually came by late afternoon, if at all. I went inside and found him at the kitchen table with his laptop open and my mail spread out like a crime board. His phone sat beside him, screen up. You get off early? I asked. Took a half day, he replied, eyes on the screen. Needed to get ahead of some things. My things, you mean? He gave a quick shrug. Our things. I live in this house too, you know. He'd moved back in after his divorce 2 years ago. At the time, I'd called it temporary. Looked like he'd heard reset. I set my keys on the counter, feeling their lightness. Run into Carla, I said. She mentioned my name floating around at her office. He looked up then, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face before he smoothed it out. People talk too much, he muttered. It's nothing. Nothing doesn't put my name in a coming soon file. He sighed heavily. Dad, relax. I was just exploring options. Seeing what's out there in case we need to make moves later. I didn't sign anything. You didn't tell me either. Because you get worked up, he said. I'm trying to manage this before it becomes a crisis. That word again. Manage. Like I was a leak in the roof. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then flipped it over. Who's that? I asked. Work, he said too fast. I walked to the fridge, opened it, closed it. The silence between us thickened. He broke it by reaching for my cell phone, which sat charging near the microwave. You got like 20 unread emails, he said. Let me clear some of this junk. I'll handle it. Dad, you don't even check this thing half the time. Then you're surprised when late fees hit. Just let me streamline some of this. He unplugged it before I answered. His thumbs flew over the screen. Give it back, I said. I'm not doing anything crazy, he replied, not looking up. Just unsubscribing from nonsense and making sure your bank alerts go to me too, so I can keep an eye on stuff. My chest tightened. I don't need a chaperone, I told him. No, but you need backup, he said, and I'm here. You should be grateful. He said grateful, and something in me snapped a little, like an old weld giving way. Darren, you're going to hear me now, I said. I check what matters. You don't get to reroute my money behind my back. He finally put the phone down, but he kept his hand over it. You're overreacting, he said quietly. Mum wouldn't want you struggling like this. He knew exactly where to press. My wife's name hung in the air between us, a ghost he'd learned to weaponize. I pulled out a chair and sat across from him. Your mother trusted me to handle this family, I said, not hand it over to someone else. He leaned back, folding his arms. Maybe she trusted the man you were 15 years ago, he replied, before you started mixing up your meds and leaving the stove on. I stared at him. When have I left the stove on? You don't remember, do you? He shot back. That's the point. Memory is a funny thing. It can fail you little by little, or it can come in sharp. Right then, it brought back the exact morning he was talking about. I'd turned the burner off and forgotten to move the pan. He'd walked in, sniffed the air, and acted like he'd just saved us from burning alive. That pan never even smoked, I said. You know as well as I do. He rolled his eyes. See, you don't realize how bad it looks. Other people see it. Miss Hernandez, Pastor, they all tell me the same thing. Good thing you're here to look out for him. So he had been making his rounds. He pushed my phone toward me but kept hold of it for one more second. I'm changing your bank alerts to my email, he said. You'll still get them, but I'll see them first. That way, if something weird happens, I jump on it. No. The word came out steadier than I felt. Dad, no, I repeated. You can sit next to me while I look. You can explain something if I ask, but you don't get to see it before I do. His jaw tightened. You know what? He said. I'll do this later when you're calmer. He slipped my phone into his pocket like he had a right to it. Then he stood, grabbed his laptop and started gathering the mail. I watched his hands, not his face. Big hands. Hands I'd bandaged when he scraped them on the sidewalk as a boy. Hands that had helped me carry his mother's casket. Hands now busy sorting through my accounts like line items in a budget. Leave the bank stuff, I said. He hesitated, then dropped a couple envelopes back on the table. I'm late, he said. We'll talk about it after your doctor appointment. What doctor appointment? The one I set up for you, Monday. Geriatric assessment, check your cognition, just to get a baseline. The floor seemed to tilt under my feet. You did what? It's just a check, Dad, standard. You've been forgetting things. Let's get ahead of it. If everything's fine, great. If not, we know what we're dealing with. He slung his bag over his shoulder. I left the info on the counter. Don't throw it away. The door closed behind him. Engine started. Tires rolled off. I sat there for a long time without moving. The house was quiet, but my head was loud. Geriatric assessment. Coming soon. Family situation. When my pulse settled a bit, I reached for the pile of mail he'd left. Pulled it closer. Then I opened the drawer where I kept my old digital camera. The small one my granddaughter used to play with on holidays. I slipped it into my pocket, along with a fresh notepad and pen. Every bill I opened, I wrote down the date, the amount, the account number. Took a photo of the page before I filed it. Every time I logged into my online banking, I wrote the time and what the balance was. At the plant, you learn to document small irregularities before they turned into explosions. Guys who laughed at paperwork were the same ones who wondered why management didn't believe them when something went wrong. I wasn't going to be that guy in my own life. I folded a few important receipts and slid them into the inside pocket of my jacket, close to my chest. Not because I thought they'd vanish, but because it felt good to have them on me, like tools on a belt. The appointment card for the assessment lay on the counter where he'd left it. I picked it up, read it twice, then tucked it into the same pocket. Not to accept it, to remember exactly what I was walking into. The parking lot behind the supermarket was crowded, shopping carts rattling across the pavement as people hurried in and out. I'd gone in for orange juice and some turkey slices. Nothing important, just enough to keep the fridge from looking as empty as I felt. Darren met me by the trunk with that clipped impatience he carried like a second skin now. "You took long enough," he muttered. "I walked," I answered. "My knees don't move on your schedule." He rolled his eyes, grabbed the grocery bag from my hand, and tossed it into the trunk harder than necessary. A woman loading her car glanced over, sensing tension. Darren didn't care. He leaned close, lowering his voice at first, then suddenly raising it so anyone within 20 feet could hear. "This is exactly why I'm saying you're slipping, Dad. You can't keep track of basic things anymore." My spine stiffened. "What basic things?" I said. "Name one thing I forgot today." "The list, for starters. You left half of it on the counter." I stared at him. "The list you moved when you were sorting my mail. That list." He ignored me, turning toward the onlookers with a weary shake of his head. "See what I mean?" he said loudly. "He gets confused and thinks we're picking on him. It's exhausting." Heat crawled up the back of my neck. Not anger, something heavier. Humiliation. I felt it spread through me, the way hot metal does when you're welding and a bead slips into your boot. A couple nearby pushed their cart faster, trying not to stare, but staring anyway. Darren kept going, his voice rising with every sentence. "You can't even track a bill without falling behind. You think that's normal? You think that's safe?" Something inside me tightened. I felt exposed, like someone had ripped open the front of my jacket. I reached for the trunk door and closed it slowly, needing the movement to keep myself grounded. "Lower your voice," I said. "Why?" he demanded. "Why pretend everything's fine when it obviously isn't?" He said the word "isn't" so loudly a child turned to look. My hands flexed. I'd been talked down to by supervisors, by contractors, by foremen who thought they were smarter than me. But being talked down to by my own son in a parking lot was a different kind of cut. This one went straight to the bone. "Get in the car," I said quietly. "Fine," he snapped and slammed the driver's door. The silence that followed had sharp edges. He drove out of the lot too quickly, tires bumping over a pothole. I gripped the handle above my head to steady myself. 2 blocks from home, he pulled into the pharmacy driveway and parked. Before I could ask why, he reached into the center console, pulled out his phone, and opened the banking app. His thumb moved fast. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Fixing a problem you created," he said. The screen lit his face, and I saw a flash of satisfaction. Not relief, satisfaction. He tapped, swiped, entered a code. My pulse thudded in my ears. "Darren, tell me what you're doing." "Moving funds," he said. "Just a chunk. I need to secure a reservation for you before the end of the week. Those facilities don't hold rooms forever." I stared at him. "Reservation for what facility?" He didn't answer at first, just kept typing. "Darren?" "Sunset Ridge," he said finally. "It's a good place, better than this creaky old house." Air seemed to thin inside the car. "You used our joint account?" I asked. "I had to move quickly," he said. "You weren't going to do it yourself." "That money is mine," I said. "Mine. You don't touch it without asking." He scoffed. "Dad, you need support, and I'm providing it. Don't make this harder than it is." I pressed my palm against my chest, feeling my heart beat through the fabric of my shirt. Everything inside me wanted to shout, but the words came out low. "Reverse it." "No," he said. "Not this time. You'll thank me later." A breath left me in a shaky rush. I watched him, My son with my wife's eyes and my stubborn jaw, handling my life like a project he'd been assigned. You don't get to decide where I live, I said. Someone has to, he replied. Someone has to take responsibility. That word again, responsibility, as if mine had expired and his had begun. He put the car back in drive and pulled onto the road. The air in the cabin turned thick, almost heavy. I looked out the window so he wouldn't see what was happening behind my face. He kept talking, words about safety, about planning ahead, about me being prone to mistakes. I didn't catch all of it. My mind was somewhere deeper, walking through numbers and dates and the way my bank statement usually looked, calculating what he had taken. At a stoplight, he tapped the steering wheel impatiently. We'll finalize things tomorrow morning, he said. You'll come with me to the bank. We'll sign the paperwork. Then everything will be under control. He nodded to himself like the matter was settled. I felt something shift inside my chest. It wasn't anger anymore. It wasn't humiliation either. It was recognition. If I didn't push back now, not yell, not fight, just push back, I'd lose more than money. I'd lose my right to make decisions, my right to exist as a man instead of a task. The light turned green. Darren accelerated. Houses blurred past. I reached into my jacket and found the notepad I'd slipped there earlier. My fingers smoothed the edge of the page. I didn't write anything down. Not yet. But I knew what needed to be written. We pulled into the driveway. Darren grabbed his phone again before the engine even stopped. I'll email the coordinator tonight, he said. This is the best thing for everyone. He opened the car door. I stayed where I was, staring at the dashboard, feeling the vibration of the engine as it wound down. He walked inside, talking to someone on speakerphone, making plans about my life that didn't include me. I let my hand fall from the notepad onto my knee. Something had changed, and I knew the next move had to be mine. The fellowship hall at church felt warmer than usual, crowded with folding chairs and the smell of potluck casseroles. Thursday nights were supposed to settle me, familiar hymns, familiar faces, but I couldn't shake the heaviness in my chest. I kept replaying the argument in the parking lot, the way Darren's voice carried like I wasn't standing 3 feet away. I took a seat near the back, hoping to blend into the noise. Didn't work. Midway through the announcements, Mr. Lawrence from the board tapped my shoulder. Marcus, can I borrow you a second? I followed him into the hallway. He looked uneasy, tugging at his tie. Listen, your son came by earlier this week, he said, told us you might be transitioning soon, maybe moving to a facility closer to his job. Said you were, his words, having a tougher time lately. My throat tightened. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. He shouldn't have said that, I managed. Well, folks just want to help, he said gently. We're organising visits, maybe meals if needed. No shame in getting extra support. I nodded so he could end the conversation. He patted my shoulder and went back inside, leaving me alone under the framed baptistry photo on the wall. Transitioning. Closer to his job. A tougher time. My life had become an open discussion. I stepped outside for air. The evening had cooled and the parking lot lights buzzed faintly. I was halfway to my truck when I saw Reggie leaning on the hood, arms folded. Been looking for you, he said. Thought you had that recital tonight. Ended early. Figured you might need a ride home, judging by the storm on your face. I let out a slow breath. You ever feel like people know more about your life than you do? Every time my ex-mother-in-law opened her mouth, he grunted. But I'm guessing this is about Darren. I didn't bother denying it. Reggie had known me too long. What now? He asked. Someone at church said he's preparing a new place for me. Preparing? Like buying? Renting? Like a room at a facility? Reggie's eyebrows rose. That what he told you? No, that's what he told everybody except me. He let that settle a moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded printout. I swung by my cousin's office before coming here. She works admin at Sunset Ridge. The name hit like a hammer. Marcus, this has your name on it. He handed me the paper. A deposit confirmation. My name in the payer field. Date stamped 3 days ago. I stared at the page, scanning the numbers again and again. My own account was listed below, masked except for the last 4 digits. The last 4 digits matched. How did he even... My voice faltered. Reggie waited. He moved money last night, I said quietly. Said it was for my good. Reggie whistled low. Man, that ain't good. That's them drawing the plan before asking the builder. I rubbed my face with both hands. The ground under me felt unsteady. Not like fear, more like betrayal with an extra weight on top. Cars were pulling out of the lot as people headed home. I glanced toward the church entrance, then toward the street, unsure where to place myself. Reggie stepped closer. There's more, he said. You probably don't want to hear it, but you need to. Go ahead. Your son posted something online today. My niece showed me because she thought I should check on you. He unlocked his phone and held it out. A social media post filled the screen. Darren's name at the top. Please pray for my father. He's not able to manage his life the way he used to. I'm doing everything I can, but it's overwhelming. If you've tried to reach him and he seemed confused or distant, please understand. We're handling a decline. I didn't say anything, didn't blink. The words dug in slow, like barbs. Decline. Reggie lowered the phone. This ain't misunderstanding anymore, he said. This is setting a stage. A stage. Yes. A setup. You plant the narrative first so nobody questions your actions later. My pulse thudded behind my ribs. Why would he do this? I whispered. Reggie shrugged. Maybe he thinks he's doing the right thing. Maybe he wants control. Maybe he's scared. Doesn't matter which one it is. The outcome's the same if you don't move. I glanced up at the church windows glowing with warm light. Inside, people were chatting and stacking chairs, completely unaware that my life had been edited without consultation. Reggie slipped the deposit printout back into my hand. You need records, he said. Real ones, not what he's telling folks. I plan to. Tonight. His tone wasn't forceful, just steady, like the plant foreman he used to be. I walked with him toward my truck. The keys in my pocket rattled, a sound that should have comforted me but didn't. We reached the driver's side door before I stopped. I'm calling the bank, I said. Good. I need a statement, full, printed, dated. He nodded. And Marcus, whatever you find, write it down. Dates, amounts, who said what. People respect a man who keeps his facts straight.
I dialed the after-hours line as I slid into the driver's seat. The automated system clicked through menus and I pressed the buttons with a clarity I hadn't felt all week. A representative finally answered. "Sir, how can we help you tonight?" I took a breath. "This is Marcus Carter. I'd like to request a detailed transaction report for all activity in my accounts over the past 2 weeks."
And I need it available for pickup first thing tomorrow morning.
No digital delivery, paper only. "We can arrange that," the rep said. "Anything else?" I looked at the deposit confirmation in my lap. My name, my money, someone else's decision. "Yes," I said. "Flag my accounts for personal authorization only. No third-party changes, no joint approvals. Everything runs through me." I hung up and sat still, the hum of the engine beneath me. Reggie stood outside my window, hands in his pockets. "You good?" he asked. "I'm getting there. Call me if you need a ride tomorrow." He headed back toward his car. I watched his tail lights fade, the church lot emptying until only a few vehicles remained. The deposit slip rested on the seat beside me. I folded it once, slipped it into my jacket pocket along with my notepad, and started the truck. The road home felt different that night. Not longer or darker, just more defined, like I could finally see where it split. The coffee shop across from the bank opened at 6, and I was inside by 6:10. The place stayed quiet that early, just the hiss of the espresso machine and the murmur of 2 students bent over laptops. I chose a corner booth, spread my jacket beside me, and emptied its pockets one item at a time. Receipts, printouts, my notepad, the deposit slip Reggie had shown me, a screenshot of Darren's post I'd taken off Reggie's phone, even a small envelope where I'd written dates the past week. All of it went onto the table in careful rows, like parts from a machine I once knew by touch. I didn't feel angry, not tired either. Something sharper had taken over, the same focus I used to get before a difficult repair on the mill floor. Back then, one wrong move meant the whole line stopped. Now, one wrong move meant losing the right to breathe in my own house. I uncapped my pen and began listing each piece of evidence on a fresh page. No emotion, just facts. Dates, amounts, names, phrases. I reread everything slowly, sorting by category, the way we used to document system failures. Patterns appeared the moment I stopped thinking like a father and started thinking like a foreman. Joint account irregularities, third-party communication, unauthorized deposit, public statements implying incapacity. I circled that last one twice. A barista passed by with a rag and smiled politely. I nodded back. My hands kept moving, organizing the scattered pieces into something solid. When the table finally made sense, I took out my phone and scrolled to a number I hadn't used in almost a year. James Turner, old union buddy who switched careers and became an elder law attorney. I hit call. He answered on the second ring. "Marcus, that you?" "I need to ask about guardianship procedures," I said. "Not to file one, for pulling out of one if someone tries to force it." His tone changed immediately. "Tell me what's going on." I gave him the short version. No rambling, no bitterness, just the facts I'd written down. The moment I finished, he exhaled like he'd been holding the air in his chest. "You did the right thing calling me. Listen carefully. Nobody can put you under guardianship without due process. Not in Ohio. They need a medical evaluation, a petition,
and evidence of incapacity, and you can challenge every step. What if someone tries to move ahead fast? Then you stay ahead faster, he said. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to temporary care plans, and document everything. Every withdrawal, every message, every attempt to control your communication. I glanced at the pile in front of me. I've been keeping notes. Good, you'll need them. Come by my office this afternoon, 3 o'clock. Bring everything. I thanked him and hung up. My coffee had gone cold. I didn't drink it. Instead, I kept working. I wrote questions for the bank manager, cross-checked dates between Darren's posts and his withdrawals, highlighted the moments where his story didn't line up with his actions. A quiet resolve settled into me, the kind that doesn't raise its voice. Half an hour passed before my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. The message preview sat there like a stain on the screen. Kewak bi loroi. No English, some kind of attempt at secrecy, but the meaning didn't hide. The plan is exposed already. I opened the message fully. You moved too early. He's suspicious. Shift to the backup. My thumb hovered above the screen. I didn't know the sender. No name, no clue. But the message wasn't meant for me. It had been forwarded or misfired the same way that bank text had once tipped off another man in another story. Except this time, it was my life. I stared at those words for a long second, feeling something cold settle behind my ribs. Darren knew. He knew I'd stopped believing his explanations. And if he was shifting to a backup, then whatever came next wouldn't be subtle. A shadow of a thought crossed my mind. Maybe he would try to prove me incompetent by force, or try to beat me to the bank, or show up with paperwork already notarized. I pushed my cup aside and leaned forward, folding my notes neatly, slipping every page into the folder I'd brought. Each click of the binder rings steadied me. Plans breaking apart don't make me panic. They make me prepare. I saved the unknown message, screenshotted it twice, and emailed it to myself. Then I added it to the same envelope as the deposit slip. The sun through the window shifted slightly, catching the edge of my notepad. Outside, 2 buses passed in succession. A man in a suit hurried into the bank. The waitress refilled someone's cup. Ordinary life continued around me, but something in my own life had crossed into a different lane entirely. I slid the folder back into my jacket, stood up, buttoned the top. My knees ached a little, but the motion steadied after a few steps. Leaving the cafe, I felt the phone vibrate again. Another text. Same unknown number. Don't let him talk to anyone alone. I locked the screen without reading further. The bank was right across the street. I crossed with the light folder under my arm. The doors opened automatically as I approached, and a rush of warm air greeted me. The first thing I saw inside was a waiting area filled with people. The second thing was my reflection in the glass. An older black man with steady eyes, walking toward a fight he didn't ask for, but wasn't afraid of anymore. I stepped up to the counter and told the teller, I need to see the branch manager, now. Darren was already holding the door open when I reached the bank entrance, moving like a man who had planned every step 2 days in advance. He gave a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. Come on, Dad, they're expecting us. He didn't ask if I was ready, didn't check if I wanted to sit, or breathe, or think.
just marched ahead. I followed, not because he led, but because I needed to see how far he would go. Inside, the branch manager, Miss Ellison, greeted us with a measured expression. She'd seen me often enough to know my face, but today her eyes flicked between us with a caution I recognized from my years supervising men who brought trouble into the room without announcing it. Mr. Carter, good afternoon. We have a private office available. Before I could respond, Darren stepped in front of me. Perfect, he said. We need signatures on these. He tapped the folder under his arm. Dad tends to drag things out, but today he understands we don't have time. My jaw tightened. She looked at me, not him, waiting for me to confirm. I didn't nod. Let's sit, I said quietly. The office felt too small the moment the door shut behind us. Darren dropped the stack of documents on the table so hard the pages slid apart. Here, he said. Start with this one. It's standard. Just sign so we can move on.
He uncapped a pen and pushed it into my hand. The pressure behind the gesture was unmistakable. Don't rush him, Miss Ellison said gently. He's fine, Darren insisted. He just gets overwhelmed. I'm here to help. It was the same tone he'd used in the parking lot, the same tone in that ridiculous social media post, protective on the surface, controlling underneath. My throat tightened, but not from fear, from something more painful. Recognition. I'd heard this tone once before, years ago at the hospital when my wife was dying. Relatives had tried to decide things for her, speaking about her like she wasn't in the room. Back then, I'd stepped in. I hadn't allowed it. Today, the target was me. I opened the first page. Words crowded the lines, clauses about shared access, transfer of authority, financial oversight. He'd marked the signature line with a neon tab. Dad, come on, he said. Sign it. We've gone over this. When? I asked. He tightened his jaw. You don't remember. That's why we're doing this. The room seemed to tilt. He was building a world where disagreement became proof of mental decline. Every protest fed his script. Every hesitation was an argument in his favor. He leaned in. This is for your safety. That word again. Safety. As if my life were a fragile object he had to wrap in bubble wrap and place on a shelf. Miss Ellison cleared her throat. Mr. Carter, you can take your time. No one signs anything under pressure. Darren flashed her an irritated look. He lowered his voice. You're not helping. I'm following protocol, she replied. He turned back to me, softening his expression the way people do when they want a dog to come closer. Dad, I'm trying to take care of things. Please, don't make this a fight. Something throbbed behind my ribs, an old ache I'd carried since the day I lost my wife, since the first holiday I spent alone, since the first time Darren came home angry and silent and I didn't know how to reach him. That ache had ruled too many decisions, too many nights I kept peace by biting my tongue. He placed the pen in my hand again. Just sign, I'll handle the rest. The words settled over me like a heavy coat. My eyes drifted back to the document, scanning line by line. And then I saw it. One phrase in bold tucked between paragraphs. Full authority of decision-making shall transfer to secondary signer. Authority. Transfer. Full. I blinked, reading it twice, 3 times. Darren tapped the page. "It's just legal wording," he said. But it wasn't. It was a surrender written in ink. And if I signed, I'd vanish from my own life. Not physically, but in all the ways that mattered. My fingers loosened around the pen. "Dad, what are you doing?" he asked. I set the pen down, not gently, not dramatically, just enough to make a sound. "I'm reading," I said. "You're stalling." "I'm reading." He ran a hand through his hair, agitated. "We don't have time for this. They need the paperwork before end of day. You'll lose the reservation otherwise." Miss Ellison raised a brow. "Reservation for what?" He stiffened. "It's irrelevant, family matter." I met her eyes. She saw it. The panic under his impatience, the truth wrapped inside his urgency. A wave of heat crept up my spine. Old fear, old guilt, old habits. Memories of every time I'd swallowed my pride to keep my son close. Every time I'd told myself, "Let it go, he's struggling." Every excuse I'd made to avoid losing the last part of my family. That ache rose like a ghost, whispering that pushing back meant losing him forever. But another voice, quieter, steadier, spoke from somewhere deeper in me. "If you sign, you lose yourself instead." My hand hovered over the pen again. My pulse thudded in my fingertips. Darren watched me, waiting, already convinced the moment was his. A sudden pressure built behind my sternum, so strong it made me shift in my seat. Not pain, not fear. Recognition. This was the line every man eventually hits, where keeping peace becomes erasing yourself. I inhaled, long and even, and then I did the only thing I could. I placed the pen on the table a second time. Firmer. "No," I said. Just one word, but it landed like a weight dropped on concrete. Darren froze. "What do you mean, no?" "I'm not signing this." He blinked hard, as if the room had glitched. "Dad, you don't understand. You have to." "No," I repeated. His face twisted into something sharp. "You being dramatic. Don't start." "I'm not starting anything," I said. "I'm choosing." Ms. Ellison spoke softly. "Mr. Carter, would you like to review the documents privately?" Darren spun toward her. "He doesn't need privacy. He needs direction." She didn't flinch. Everyone deserves privacy when reviewing legal documents. His jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jump. He turned back to me, hands pressed flat on the table. "You're going to make a fool of yourself. You're going to tank everything I built to help you." "Help isn't force," I said. His eyes narrowed. "You don't know what you're throwing away." I looked at the paper, looked at my name typed neatly above the line they wanted me to sign, looked at the phrase, "full authority," again, and I felt something inside me steady just enough. "I'm not throwing anything away," I told him. "I'm keeping what's mine." He opened his mouth to argue, but I pushed the stack of papers back across the table. Slow, deliberate, final. And the faint scrape of those pages sliding toward him was the only sound left in the room. Lucinda entered the room just as the air between me and Darren turned tight enough to snap. She carried a clipboard and a calm I recognized instantly, the calm of someone who has handled storms without showing strain. "Mr. Carter, would you mind if I sit with you a moment?" Her tone wasn't polite obligation. It was inquiry, permission. She waited until I nodded before pulling out the chair beside mine. She glanced briefly at the papers Darren had shoved toward me, then turned her body slightly away from him, angling her attention toward me alone. "I need to ask a quick question," she murmured quietly. "Go ahead," I said. Her eyes sharpened just enough to show intent. "Do you want to sign these documents of your own free will?" The question landed like a door cracking open. A way out, if I chose to say it. But words felt too exposed. I reached into my pocket instead. My notepad sat folded in half, a small square tucked into the inside flap. I had written something on it earlier that morning, before leaving the cafe, when I realized I might need to speak in ways Darren couldn't twist. I slid the folded slip toward her under the table edge. She adjusted her clipboard to block Darren's view and unfolded the paper. "Not voluntary. Please help." Her nod was almost imperceptible, but I saw it. "Thank you, Mr. Carter," she whispered. She straightened, professional once more. "Mr. Carter will need a private verification," she announced. "For what?" Darren snapped. "He doesn't need that." "Bank protocol," she replied. "Standard when signatures involve major authority changes." He tried to argue, but she had already stood, motioning to me. "Sir, please come with me." I rose. My legs felt steadier than they had in days, maybe weeks. Darren reached out as if to grip my arm, but Lucinda stepped between us with quiet precision. "You may wait here," she said firmly. "This is ridiculous," he spat. "He's confused. He needs me present." "That is not the determination we make before verification," she answered. Her calm was steel hidden in velvet. She guided me into a smaller office down the hall. The door clicked closed, shutting out Darren's frustration. The room felt cooler, and for the first time in a while, I could breathe without feeling watched. Lucinda sat across from me, placing her clipboard on the desk. "Mr. Carter, I am going to ask a few questions for our record. Answer however you wish. There is no wrong answer. My priority is making sure no customer signs under pressure." "I understand." She began with simple prompts, my name, date, address. Then she shifted. "Do you feel pressured by anyone here today?" "Yes." She didn't blink. "Can you tell me who?" "My son." She took careful notes, writing without rush. My phone buzzed in my breast pocket, distracting me. Lucinda motioned gently. "You may check it. We can log anything relevant." I pulled it out, expecting another automated alert or maybe a reminder from the doctor's office Darren had arranged. Instead, a text preview glowed on the lock screen. From Darren's number. Except it wasn't meant for me. "Just get him to sign. We finish the payment this afternoon." My heart thudded once, hard enough to feel in my throat. Another line appeared beneath it, sent seconds later. "Don't let him stall. The director said room won't hold." Lucinda saw my expression shift. "May I look?" I turned the screen toward her. She drew in a quiet breath, then reached for her phone and snapped a documentation photo using the bank's secured app. "This supports your statement," she said. "Thank you for showing me." I stared at the message longer than necessary. Not because of the content, I already knew what he wanted, but because seeing his intent written plainly stripped away the last trace of hope that this was misunderstanding. He wasn't confused. He wasn't scared. He wasn't panicking. He was planning. Lucinda continued the verification calmly,
But every answer felt clearer now. I wasn't tiptoeing anymore. I wasn't trying to spare him. I wasn't holding on to fear of losing him. "Mr. Carter," she said finally, "you are fully within your rights to refuse every document presented today. We will freeze all pending changes until you have legal counsel review the matter. I can initiate that immediately." I nodded once. "Do it." She typed a few commands, each keystroke landing like another piece of armor being fastened. Footsteps echoed outside the office door, fast, agitated. Darren's shadow moved across the frosted glass. Lucinda tapped the lock meeting button on her screen. The door wouldn't open unless she permitted it. "One more thing," she said softly. "If your son attempts additional withdrawals, we'll be notified. Nothing will process without your explicit approval." I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding.
"Thank you." She gathered the printed verification forms and slid them toward me.
"Once you sign these, confirming refusal of the documents, everything today becomes part of our official record." My pen didn't tremble this time. Not at all. The final stroke of ink dried on the paper as the phone in my pocket vibrated again. Another text from Darren. "I told you not to talk alone." I locked the screen and placed the phone face down. Lucinda didn't ask to see it. She didn't need to. We both knew the picture was complete. The conference room they led us into was all glass, 4 transparent walls, 1 long table, and the kind of silence that swallows excuses whole. James Turner had arrived ahead of me and sat near the centre, his briefcase open, legal pad ready. Lucinda stood by the end of the table, posture steady, expression unreadable. Darren paced, tapping his phone against his palm like he was warming up for a fight. I took the seat closest to the door.
That old habit from years on the factory floor. Never sit where you can't walk out if you need to.
James nodded at me once. "Whenever you're ready." Darren didn't wait. He dropped into the chair opposite me and launched straight in. "Look, we're wasting time. He needs help. He's not thinking clearly and every delay puts him at risk. You all saw how confused he was earlier." He pointed toward me like I was an exhibit in a courtroom. "He's been leaving the stove on, misplacing bills, forgetting appointments. I've had to step in because nobody else will. This is what a responsible son does." Lucinda didn't write anything yet. She just listened. James flipped 1 page on his legal pad. "Mr. Carter," he said calmly, "do you want to respond?" I opened my folder and set several sheets on the table. Not thrown, not dramatized, simply placed with precision. "These are the past 2 weeks of my transactions, signed, stamped, printed this morning. Every withdrawal and every transfer."
Darren laughed sharply.
"That doesn't prove anything. He can't keep track of numbers anymore." I ignored the jab and pulled out the second set of papers, a copy of the deposit slip Reggie had given me. My name, my account, Sunset Ridge. "This was made without my knowledge," I said, "without permission." His face drained for half a second before he caught himself. "I told you why I did that," he snapped. "You're spiraling. I had to secure a room before you hurt yourself at home." James raised a hand slightly. "There's no medical documentation of incapacity, correct?" Darren bristled. "I don't need a doctor to tell me my own father is slipping." James's voice stayed level. "The court does." Lucinda stepped closer to the table. "And so does the bank," she added. Her tone made Darren pause just long enough for me to remove the final sheet from the folder, a printout of the text he'd sent by mistake. "Just get him to sign. We finish the payment this afternoon."
I slid it in front of him. He stared at it without touching it,
His throat moved once, a single swallow.
That's out of context, he muttered.
Then explain it, James said.
I was talking about helping him transition, Darren insisted. You're twisting everything I do into something ugly.
James tilted his head.
You sent this earlier as well, correct? He held up another printed message, the one that read, "Don't let him talk to anyone alone."
Protocol, Darren shot back.
He goes off the rails and gets paranoid if he's confused.
Lucinda finally picked up her pen.
For the record, she said, today's verification established clear, consistent comprehension by Mr. Carter. No confusion, no impairment, and no willingness to sign the documents presented.
She wrote as she spoke. Darren's calm cracked.
You're all missing the point, he barked. He doesn't know what he's doing. I've been carrying everything for him.
I am the only one trying to take care of this family. His voice hit the glass walls and bounced back at him. An older couple waiting outside looked over, startled. He didn't lower his tone. If this keeps going, I'll file for emergency guardianship. Today. I'm not playing around. I'll make the court see what's obvious. He pointed at me again. You need control, Dad. You can't keep pretending you're capable. My heart thudded once, hard, heavy, but not in fear, in recognition that the man yelling wasn't the boy I'd raised. This wasn't concern. It was conquest. James leaned back slightly, not rattled. You can file, he said evenly, but you won't win. Not after what happens next. Lucinda closed her folder, slid a new document across the table, and placed 2 fingers on the top edge to keep Darren from snatching it. This, she said, is a formal report of suspected elder financial exploitation, filed by the bank, effective immediately. Darren's mouth fell open. What? It has been logged with our compliance department, Lucinda continued. They will freeze all contested accounts, notify state authorities if necessary, and flag any attempt to move funds or submit guardianship paperwork while an investigation is active. She tucked the document beneath her clipboard with calm finality. You what? Darren sputtered. You can't do that. My father needs help and you're letting him ruin everything. James rested his palm on the table. No. What's happening is that your actions have consequences. Darren tried to speak again, but nothing came out. Shock does that. Snatches the breath right out of a person. The room stayed quiet long enough for me to hear the faint tapping of Lucinda's pen against the clipboard. A slow, steady rhythm marking the shift in power. She turned to me. Mr. Carter, you can decide how you want to proceed with these accounts. We're here to protect your choices. I took a breath. Not deep or dramatic, just steady enough to keep my voice level. Freeze everything, I said. No authorizations except my own. Darren pushed back from the table so abruptly his chair scraped across the floor. I'm not done, he shouted. I'll go to the court myself. They'll see through this. You're welcome to try, James replied. But you should be prepared. They'll ask why the bank filed a protection report before you did. Darren's face went pale, then red, then something in between. He grabbed his phone, stuffed his folders into his bag, and stormed toward the exit. The door rattled as it shut behind him. His footsteps echoed all the way down the hall. Lucinda gave me a nod, respectful, not pitying. We'll draft the written summary for your records, Mr. Carter. You'll leave with everything documented. James gathered his papers. You handled yourself well, he said. I didn't respond right away. My hands rested flat on the table, not shaking. Outside the glass walls, the branch kept moving. Customers waiting in line, bankers greeting people,
An ordinary afternoon continuing as if the ground hadn't shifted beneath my life just minutes before. The door to the conference room creaked open as Lucinda stepped out to make copies. James stood to stretch his back, and I stayed seated for a moment longer, breathing quietly, letting the weight of what just happened settle in my chest. Not triumph, not relief. The courthouse wasn't crowded that morning, just a few lawyers checking messages and a pair of clerks wheeling boxes down the hall. James and I took seats near the front while the judge reviewed the file. No drama, no raised voices, just the slow, steady work of procedure, doing what it was made to do. The judge flipped through the stack of documents, pausing now and then to read more closely. When she finally looked up, her expression told me enough.
Mr.
Carter, the court finds you fully capable of managing your own affairs. Her voice was measured, not warm, but it carried weight. She shifted her gaze to Darren, who sat stiffly beside his attorney. The petition is denied. Furthermore, the disputed funds must be returned within 7 business days. All pending admissions or facility arrangements are null. Any further attempts to alter Mr. Carter's accounts without consent will be subject to investigation. Darren's attorney whispered something to him, but Darren stared straight ahead, lips pulled tight, jaw working. He didn't speak, didn't look at me. Not once. The judge wasn't finished. Given the bank's report of suspected exploitation, this court issues a temporary order restricting your access to any financial accounts belonging to your father. A compliance review will follow. She signed the order with a clean stroke of the pen.
That sound, just ink against paper, carried more finality than all of Darren's shouting these past weeks. His shoulders slumped, just enough for me to notice. Not remorse, just the weight of consequence settling where he didn't expect it. When the hearing ended, people rose and collected coats. James placed a hand on my shoulder. "Let's get your protective trust established this afternoon," he said quietly. "You're in the clear now. Time to build something sturdy." We left the courthouse without looking for Darren. I didn't need to see whatever expression he wore. My life wasn't a mirror for him to distort anymore. At the bank, Lucinda greeted me with a small nod and a stack of documents already prepared. No signatures from anyone but me, no tabs, no pressure, just clean pages waiting for decisions that belonged to me alone. We spent an hour setting up a personal guardianship alternative, a structure that protected my accounts from interference without handing them over to anyone else. They added verification layers, new alerts, and a hard block on joint access. Lucinda walked me through each step and never once spoke to me like I was fragile. The lockbox key changed hands. My online banking got a new password. The old debit card number was replaced, and I cut the plastic myself before dropping it into the shred bin. When that was done, James and I drove to my house. I changed the code on the front door, programmed 2 new access settings, deleted the old ones. For the first time in a long while, the house felt like mine again. Not a place I was defending, but a place I was allowed to inhabit. By afternoon, James had forwarded copies of the court order to the brokerage, the assisted living facility, and the hospital system Darren had contacted. His paralegal sent me a message confirming each receipt. One by one, the nets that had been closing around me loosened. They didn't disappear. That isn't how life works. But they stopped tightening. The last thing I did before James left was simple. I handed him a written directive. All communication from Darren goes through counsel. No calls, no visits, no surprise decisions,
No debates in my living room or arguments in grocery store parking lots. The boundary wasn't anger. It was oxygen. James folded the directive and tucked it into his file. "You call me if anything changes," he said. "I will." He stepped out onto the porch and gave a small wave before heading to his car. The quiet he left behind wasn't hollow. It was comfortable, like a chair finally fitting your back after too many years of leaning wrong. Evening settled slow that day. I heated a small pot of soup, sliced a piece of cornbread, and ate at the kitchen table without rush. The house didn't creak the way it usually did. Maybe it did, and I just wasn't listening for trouble anymore. After dinner, I walked out onto the porch with a sweater over my shoulders. The porch light cast a soft glow on the steps. A breeze moved through the yard, stirring the leaves that had gathered near the walkway. No phone buzzing. No footsteps stomping through the kitchen. No folders slapped on the counter. No lectures. No demands. Just the hum of the neighborhood settling in for the night. I eased into the old wooden chair, letting it rock back a few inches. My hands rested loosely on the armrests. No tension left in them. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked twice, then went quiet. A few cars passed now and then. My house stood still around me, a quiet I hadn't experienced in years. I breathed in slow, exhaled slower, not because something profound washed over me, because nothing pressed on me for once. The kind of nothing that feels like freedom. I watched the porch light flicker gently against the railing, then leaned back, letting the quiet settle where fear used to live. No one calling my name, no one insisting I sign, no one telling my story for me, just me, the evening air, and the simple fact that, for the first time in a long time, my life answered only to me.